So when you're starting a project, you want to start with the goal. What is the problem to be solved? What is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? So we want to start by defining what that goal is. I like to use a document. You could call it a design document, whatever. I just like to put together my thoughts in some kind of document. There's an article that Martin Fowler wrote, Is Design Dead? I basically agree with him that design still has a place in agile project management. I like to start with my best guess at the design, and then I can be free to change the design along the way. I use my experience as a developer, designer, and manager to take a stab at what the design will end up being eventually. It helps to compose my thoughts and to dream a little bit. Yes, I consider myself an agile practitioner. I use a form of Kanban at work, and I help the development teams get into a Scrum work cycle. For this project, I won't be doing any project management of myself, of course. I mostly follow my own nose using the overall design document as a guide. It's just like a place, so I develop, I go back to the design document, develop, and back and forth. So after I know what we're trying to do, I listen to the design for what nouns I'm hearing. And I write down the names of those nouns, getting rid of any synonyms, of course, and then describe each one of the relevant attributes that I'll need to know about with each of these primary nouns. And I convert this structure into my database design. From the database design, I think about what web page interfaces I'm going to need to make in order to fill in and manage that data. What pages should link to which other pages? How will a person want to interact with the system? I try to get a vision of the overall interaction first before doing any coding, and just lay out. Let's say there's a login page, or there's input forms. Let's say you just kind of think through each of the pieces that you're going to need and what it might look like. I'm not like drawing it out or anything. I'm just saying what are the overall high-level pieces you want to have. So from those interfaces, I get a rough idea of what API calls I'm going to need in order to service these interfaces. I try to think in terms of a REST-like interface as much as possible. There's a lot written about REST interfaces, and I recommend that you go learn more about that if you're not familiar with the concept. Personally, I tend to code what I would consider 3/4 of a REST interface. According to the Richardson REST maturity model, I implement 3 of the 4 levels. I use objects, resources, and the HTTP verbs, but I don't really bother with the hypermedia links. I understand why they're helpful, but to me, they're not worth the trouble from my perspective. I don't believe I've ever used the hypermedia links from any other REST interface either, so I really don't feel bad about leaving that out. I have in the back of my mind an application pattern of a relational database at the base, a REST API programmed in Node and Express.js, and a static HTML website activated by JavaScript modules. I like how this model naturally enforces the separation of concerns, along with a few more principles. It also helps with modularity and a bit of composability. One of these additional principles is to keep types of code separate and to keep data separate from code. Through experience and advice, I try to avoid using database functions and procedures. They were in vogue in the 2000s, but they're not as scalable these days. Instead, I try to put all the logic of manipulating data into the code somewhere. I recently even tried to stop using database views and joins so it's easier to transfer the design to a NoSQL database later. Please look up the different types of databases if you want to know more about that. I'm not going to get into that kind of detail here. So I take the data model in the design and convert it into SQL statements to create a blank database. For me, this is a good place to start because I can make a good amount of progress in a fairly short period of time, and I feel a sense of accomplishment. I think I would lose heart and get frustrated if I continued building the system one layer at a time without any feedback. So as a result, the next thing I do is to start getting the most basic system working from end to end. Once you have a living tree sapling, you can help the tree grow. But you can't build a full tree by first building the roots, then the trunk, then the branches, then the leaves. The tree's going to not survive waiting for the leaves to show up. You need to make a small amount of root, a small amount of trunk, one branch, and then the first leaf. Then you can start adding more leaves and branches, etc. along the way. Therefore, we need to build one thin vertical slice of the app and get it out there. Once we have something interesting working locally, we need to build out the release process. Because I'm a one-person development team, I only need two environments, development and production. If I'm working with a team, I would want to have a test environment where I can integrate and verify our solutions together and run the test suite automatically. If cost was no object, I might want to have that test environment, but cost is an object, so I'm only going to go with the first two. In order to have better scalability, repeatability, and standardization, I put my Node.js project inside a Docker container. This makes it easier to host the system on public cloud infrastructure. You may ask if I do test-driven development. Well, no, I don't adhere to test-driven development by making a test that fails before making the code work. I actually make the code, test the app by hand, and then make automated tests and verify they work too. It's important to add the test suite right when you make a new endpoint so you can make sure to keep it working as you make changes to the code. If you skip the test, you'll either not touch any code for fear of breaking it, or you'll run the risk of breaking it and not know it. The test suite is there as a shield against breaking it and not knowing it. So here's the design document. I don't know if I should read the whole thing to you or pause it and let you read it or whatever, but I'm just going to try to zip through it as best I can. Let's see if we can go in here and make this a bit bigger. Come on, back to the top. All right, so every year at Thanksgiving, we have the whole extended family come over. It's like 40 some people, and sometimes there's people missing or whatever, and that includes kids, adults, whatever. And so we really need two Christmas lists. We have one for adults to buy for each other, and one for the parents of kids to buy for the kids. It used to be that everyone's buying for everyone else, and then you get tons of these cheap gifts, and it's just not a good fit. So we do kind of a Christmas exchange, peer-to-peer list as well as a kid list. What do I mean by that? So on the peer-to-peer list, we have a hat we passed around, and in the hat are slips of paper that say, I'm buying for, say, Joe, and then there's a blank is buying for Joe, and then there's a little cut line in the middle, and so you reach your hand into the hat and you pull it out and you say, and you look at the name that you got. If it's not yourself and it's not your spouse, then you write your name on the little blank and you tear it at the line. The part that says I'm buying for Joe, you put that in your pocket and you hide it. And the part that says your name, say Tim, is buying for Joe, you put that into a different hat that is the one that's the record of who's buying for who. And then you go back around a second time around the whole crowd of adults, and you do the kids. So you have a list of all the kids and who's buying for them, and then you say, let's say you do 2 kids per family. So some families have more than 2 kids, some families have less than 2 kids or no kids or whatever, or there's some generous person that's a single person that says, yeah, I want to buy for a kid, whatever. It works out so that there's enough people buying for kids that all the kids are going to get a gift for Christmas. So for my family, I've got 2 kids, so I'm trying to generally pick 2 from the adult hat and 2 from the kid hat, and then it works out. So things the paper system is not great at. We've not been disciplined enough to get gift ideas on the back of the slips of paper. We try to say, hey, write down ahead of time. Here's the pile of all the slips of paper. Write your gift ideas on the back. Well, people don't know their gift ideas right at Thanksgiving, generally speaking, and a lot of people don't participate in the whole writing on the back process. So inevitably, just a few pieces of paper have anything written on the back. So people think of what they want later. Right. So as a result, people call up their relatives to figure out what they might want, and then it clues in the relatives who's buying for who, and it's just not ideal. Second factor is people lose their slips of paper. I'm the one that keeps the hat, so that on Christmas morning, whoever doesn't get a gift, we can look it up and see who didn't do their job. When someone is forgetting, and they call up and they say, hey, could you look and see who I picked? I have to rummage through the whole bag, whole hat full of names, try to find the one that is, has that person's name on it, and I tell them who they have. And so then I find out. I don't want to find out, but I get to know a lot of these people because they call up and say, hey, look me up, please. Problem number 3, sometimes the signatures on the slip of paper are illegible. Yeah, so it just says, blah, blah, blah is buying for Joe. Oh, okay, that's real helpful. And then 4th, sometimes the people who want to buy are not present physically when the list is assigned, but they still want to be involved. And this forces someone to choose the people for them and send them their names, and that can potentially ruin the secret. Yes. All right, so that's the whole situation. I'm trying to solve that problem. Say, okay, you know what? We can do this a different way. We can use a computer system. We can automatically assign names, and we can answer the question for who has who without getting another person involved. At least that's the vision. Specification of the need. So build a system to manage both lists of people for family and make it easy to solve each of the issues above. Before I go into that detail, I just want to say that at first I said, okay, let me go look on the internet. I'm not the first person with this problem. Someone else maybe has solved it. And I found 3 different Christmas list management systems. One is just a Secret Santa thingy. You upload the list, it randomizes it, assigns it, gives it back. Okay, that's nice. It's simple. I'm not sure how that gets divvied up or how people find out who gets which name. Maybe there's just an administrator that handles it all, and they're just fine knowing who has who. I'm not fine, so that doesn't work for me. There were other, like I said, there were 3 different sites. They each have different pros and cons and different features, but none of them solved the problem of having a kids list that the adults buy for. That wasn't solved by any of those. None of them had any kind of SMS texting ability. None of them had the ability to handle the situation where, say, you pick a name and it's your spouse, you have to put it back. Well, we can either handle it that way, or we can inform the computer system, don't assign people who are married to each other, and don't assign your own kids to the parents. Of course, we'd have to tell the system those relationships somehow. Not sure how to go about doing that, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, so what are the needs of the system? What am I trying to build here? So I need to have the ability to set up an account for anyone who wants to use the service. Because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, we can't just publicly list all these accounts, all these lists of names. It has to be something that you can maintain over time. So they're going to sign up, say at Thanksgiving or some other time, and they're going to be using the list through either December 25th or whatever the other day is, out till January 7th or whatever it is we're going to do here. You can have that list as long as you need it. And then say, I don't know, I have to look up and see what's the maximum amount of time people would want to know this list. But say end of February, wipe the database, get ready for next year. I don't know that I'll do that, but let's just sake of argument, let's just say that's what's going to happen. So anyway, we want to have an ability to set up an account. So each user of the service must prove that they have a working email address, the account should have a password, all the standard sort of stuff. And once they have an account, then they can manage their gift lists. Okay, when you say you're managing the list, I'm calling that you're being an admin of that list. I'm just picking a noun or is it an adjective? Anyway, maybe it's both. So this is an attribute of you as a user of the system that you are managing this list. Call it a list manager. Maybe that's a better name for it. Maybe admin's not the best word. I don't know. So any user who creates a list can share the management of that list with another person. So we need to have a way to set that up. When creating the list, the user must choose which type of list it is. Is it a peer-to-peer or a child list? And we need to have a clear description of what each of those are, because I know what that means, but maybe other people don't know this child list idea, and maybe they don't, maybe if there's a peer-to-peer child list, they might get confused, and maybe there's situations where, let's say if it's a group home or something where there are adults that would fall into the category of a child list. Anyway, yeah, I'll try to describe the different lists so it makes the most sense. The user should be able to upload a gift list via CSV text form or something. There needs to be some way to add in the gifts to the list. You should be able to reuse a previous list. Oh, so when I said that we want to wipe the database, not doing that. So we're going to keep the list. Okay, admins can edit an existing list, title and the entries. List entries should include a name of the person being bought for and have a place to accept the name of the person doing the buying, just like the paper list. So list entries should also accept an optional place for gift ideas. I said that. List entries should allow for a phone number. When a user signs up, if they provide their phone number, it will match any list entry with their phone number on it for 9 months. This is the seasonal thing I was saying. So it stays. Let's say they sign up in March, and this will be good through the end of the year or whatever. So I'm just saying 9 months seems like a pretty reasonable amount of time to say that phone number is fair to match. Users have to confirm their phone number again if they want to use the system again after the 9 months have passed. Unfortunately, the system cannot text anyone without their opt-in. Yes. I happen to know, because I've worked with SMS systems before, I've used Twilio, and there is an opt-in policy. You can't just text people, some random phone number or whatever. You have to actually get that person to kind of sign up for your service, to opt in to getting text messages. And there needs to be a record that they have said, yes, I'm willing to get text messages from you. And, I could lose my ability to use the service, the text service, if I'm not abiding by that policy. 11, after a user has signed up with their phone number, they can then provide gift ideas to any list that their phone number is on, that has their phone number on it, yes. There'll be some kind of UI to show what list the user is on, and an easy way to edit the gift suggestion entries for each item. Perhaps they can submit gift ideas via text. Yeah, there's an idea. I have to see how possible that is, but I like the idea. If they send a text saying gift idea, and then the name of the gift, that will append that X, whatever that is, to whatever list that they're on. Admins can assign parent phone numbers to each child. More than one phone number can be assigned to each child. If the system recognizes the phone number, the system should show the name next to the phone number, to make it easier for the admin to know that they assigned the right person. Users have phone numbers that match parents, should be given an interface to make the gift suggestions for their child. It'd be great if the person could sign up without visiting the website. That'd be nice. I feel like people, at least some people in extended families, don't like websites, or they try to avoid them or whatever. If I go to the family and say, okay, this is the system we're going to use, everyone has to go to the website, inevitably someone is not going to do it. But if you say, hey, just text this phone number and say, I'm opting in or I'm signing up or whatever the magic incantation is to make this work, maybe they can sign up by text message, or maybe just by email. They'll email to a certain email address and they're signed up. I even said, what about an IVR call tree? Whatever, the call tree, press 1 for this, 2 for that sort of stuff. Maybe we can set that up. Then they just call in and say, yes, I'd like to sign up for the service. Okay, so as I described above, once I have the overall picture of what the goal is, I start listening. Okay, what are the nouns? What are the things the system is going to deal with? Well, there's going to be users, and they have attributes. You can read this for yourself. There's going to be a list, right? There's a list of names, or other holiday list. There's an admin, which you say, which list is it? Which user is it? When did this get created? And who created it? List entries. they have to say which list is this list entry on, and then the attributes about each of those entries. If we're sending text into the system, I want a place to record every single text that comes in so that I can process the data for whatever it is I want to do with it. And we're going to need that information if we're going to act on it. And same thing for text being sent. I want a record of every single text that gets sent out so that I have, traceability of what's going on. And then there's an unsubscribe list. If I'm sending emails, there needs to be some way to unsubscribe from those emails. I think that's a law. I'm not positive, but certainly it's good courtesy. Okay, so once I have a database, a data model that I'm going to turn into a database script, then I want to say, well, what are the user interfaces that I'm going to need to manage all this data? So of course, there needs to be some kind of login screen. And if we're logging in, then what if we forget our password? So there got to be a password reset. And of course, there's really two parts to the password reset. There's the part that says, here's me, I forgot my password, type in my email address, go. And then there's the second part, when you get the code back to your email, you click the code, you prove that it's really you, and then you say, I'd like to put in my new password. That's really a separate screen, right? And then the list creation screen, of course, has to be some way to enter the list. And then there needs to be a place to display the existing list. So this existing, let's go back over and look at some of the, yeah, okay. So on the list display screen, the share ownership link. So once you're displaying the list, you might want to at that point say, I would like to share ownership of this list to someone else. If you are the admin of that list, you should have the ability to do that right there. Then that implies that there's a share ownership screen where you can say, here's the name of the list, the current admins, and a button where you can remove admins from the list, or you can add input box to add people in. How would we know one person from the next? Well, I guess phone number and address, because I don't think name is going to be specific enough. If I said Joe Smith, I want to add as my admin, which Joe Smith are we talking about here? Or if I just said Dave, even in my extended family, there's multiple Daves, so that's not going to really work to just, do by name. So I think phone number and email address is specific enough. If that's not going to work, then maybe we could have select. I assume that admins are always going to be on the existing list. So you could go through the existing list. In fact, I'll just add that now. Or choose a person from the existing list. List editing. Yes, so you after you created the thing, you might want to change the name of the list. Maybe there's a reason to edit an individual entry, I don't know. And again, a share ownership link back to the share ownership screen. Okay, and that's all I have for this document. Let me switch over to the second document to show what I did next. Yes, later on I realized, I need some way to know, this is under the data model, I need some way to know which people can't be assigned to certain people. So like I said, like a spouse or parents of children or whatever, we need to know which people can't buy for certain other people. We need to have a list that is managed somehow that keeps track of that. Did I add a interface for that? Button to assign buyers to the list of members, list of users who cannot buy for this user. That's the display. Yeah, display of the data we just talked about. Where do I add that data? I did not put a place to add that. So I'll deal with it later. And then I realized that there was missing from the previous design was processors. So when incoming texts are coming in, we need to record the message in the data model, that place for recording incoming texts. We got to schedule a reminder, assuming that they're asking for a reminder. We got to update the gift suggestions if they're asking to do that. And we need to handle the sign-up process if they're asking to do that. So far, I think those are only 3 things we would have incoming text messages to handle things. Incoming email, we're just going to handle signups, which I'm not even sure there's a way to do this. I'll just say there's another item here. Handle unsubscribe. Hopefully there's a way. And put that in yellow. Okay. And the outgoing text processor, we're going to read from the text schedule queue, which we talked about earlier here above. And so we're going to verify the number is opted in before we try to send anything to them. And record what message was being sent, and then you send the message. That's it for the processor. Okay. Okay, so the last section is the API description. As I said, you go through the UI description and kind of listen for, okay, well, if I was having to do this kind of update, then I would have to have, this kind of endpoint on my API and application programmer interface, right? Programming interface, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to need to be able to add users, get users, verify the login is correct, right? Because if they put in the wrong or right password, there needs to be a way to update the password. That's part of the password reset process. I need to be able to generate a passcode, to send out in the email. I need to be able to verify that that passcode is correct when they submit their password reset. I need to be able to create lists, get lists. I need to be able to update a list. I need to be able to bulk add list items, all in one at once, like a CSV upload or something like that. I need to be able to get one item from a list. I need to get the whole list. I need to be able to update an individual item. I need to add admins to the list, admin list. I need to be able to delete, remove admins from the admin list. I need to be able to list all of the people on the admin list. I'm going to have some way to add items to the avoid list and remove items from the avoid list. I need to be able to add items to the text receive list, and I need to be able to add items to the text sent list as well. You may notice I don't need to remove anyone from those lists. Once they're added on there, they're just on there. If I need to clean up that data later or I do that manually, I don't need to have an API for doing that. And then I need to have a way to add someone to the unsubscribe list. That's all that I noticed from the UI. If there's something I forgot, then I guess I'll come upon it as I go through things. We'll add that later. So that's all that I have for the design document. I guess it's time to get working on it.